Thank you very much. How many like that song? Raise your hand. Yes. You know, it takes a lot of talent to play the piano. I had a patient one time say to me, now that when my what'd she say? When my ankle gets better, can I play the piano? I said, well, sure. She said, good, because I could never play it before. Anyway, I never forget that. I was a young therapist, and I fell right into that. Anyway, it's good to see all you folks again, and I recognize some faces, and some faces I don't recognize. Those I don't recognize will have to leave now. I'm kidding. But I do appreciate everybody coming so that we can all worship God together. So I discovered a long time ago, that's the main reason for church, is it's nice to have the communion of everybody together, but worshiping God. And this morning, I'm going to tell you what I have learned, and I am still in the process of learning. As a matter of fact, the sermon today has to do with an ongoing problem that I have, and it has to do with worry. When I was a boy, my mom, she never worried about much, and she said, well, Bobby, she said, I don't worry, she said, because it doesn't do any good. And she's right, it doesn't do any good. But how did this whole thing get going, this worry thing, anyway? Well, we have to, don't worry, this is only an hour and a half sermon. I'm teasing. I like to keep it a little on the light side, but Reverend, if I am not Reverend, forgive me, I don't mean to be. But it all started with Adam and Eve. And so if you want to turn your Bibles, I'm going to be using today, I will be using the New International Version, which I do not consider as accurate as the King James Version, but it flows very well, and in this case I think there won't be any discrepancy. Anyway, turn to Genesis 3, and I like these. I have several Bibles on my phone. And when I was a young man, I went back, I was baptized. I had no training at all in religion, and I just knew that I wanted to know more about God, and so I was baptized as Seventh-day Adventist when I went to school at Loma Linda at the School of Physical Therapy. But anyway, a few years later, I said to myself, if I'd been a Mormon, if I'd have gone to a Mormon college, I might end up being a Mormon. And so it dawned on me that I needed to go through everything again. And I liked the way that Seventh-day Adventists, of course I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I like the way that Seventh-day Adventists study. You take all the information you can find in the Bible about a topic, you lay it out, and then you draw your conclusion. To me, that sounds pretty sound. Take baptism, for example. That's pretty cut and dry, isn't it? Even the word baptize means to immerse, and yet we find that many of the churches today are still sprinkling. Now, why would that be? Because if you take the Bible and you run out everything, your only conclusion can be that it's a full immersion. So I went through everything again, and I am still a Seventh-day Adventist. And I feel like the Seventh-day Adventist Church does that in every topic, in every way. Does that mean that I haven't found any errors? I found a couple little minor things that I'm not really sure of, but they're so minor it's not worth talking about. And what I'm getting to is that these computers, you can do that so much faster than I did. I mean, it took me forever to run through these pages and stuff. Here, you can take a topic, put it in, push a button, and then there's all the text to deal with that topic. But my wife, she likes to carry, she says, there's just nothing like the written word in your hand. And so either way, as long as it's the written word and there's no deviation. So we come to Genesis 3, and we go to verse 6, and it says, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. Oh, I wish she hadn't done that. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of them were both opened, and they realized they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then something happened at that time, and something that affected all of us to the present time. Something was added to the life of Adam and Eve, and it was fear. They realized they were naked. Their garment of light was gone, and now that's not in the Bible, the garment of light. That's what I've gleaned from Ellen White's writings. Accept it or not, we should accept what's just in the Bible, but I do believe that's true. It was gone, and they were naked, and they go, whoa, you know. And they had an impending event coming. They met every evening in the cool of the evening with God. And they were afraid. They were afraid. They were worried about this future event that was going to take place, not too far in the distance. The man and his wife heard the sound of God, the Lord God, as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees in the garden. Now, I'm sure that's going to work, right? Yes, you can't hide from God, no. But the Lord called to the man. He says, where are you? You think God was faked out, didn't know where they were at? He was giving them an opportunity. And he answered, he said, well, I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And God said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? And the man said, well, you know, it's not really my fault. I'm not taking responsibility for that. That woman that you put here with me, she gave me some fruit. I just almost stuffed it in my mouth from the tree, and I ate it. Then the Lord said to the woman, what is this you've done? Well, it wasn't really my fault. That serpent, that you created, deceived me, and I ate. And so that was the start of fear. That was probably the start of people trying to pass the buck, not being responsible for what they did. You notice God doesn't deal with that. He doesn't say, well, you guys, you can't blame your wife, you can't blame the serpent. He just goes straight to the punishment. He goes, okay, this is the way it's going to be now. You made this decision. So from then on in, that one terrible thing was added to our lives. Fear. Fear is terrible. You can't go through a day without fear. You're driving down the highway. There's a small amount of fear that this car coming towards you may not stay in his lane. I mean, we're not talking big time fear, but you're a little apprehensive. And sometimes that does happen. You pick up, well, today we don't pick up the paper. You look in your computer and check out the news, and fear grips you when you see some of the things that are happening. They're very, very unpleasant, very fearful things. And so we're going to talk about fear of the future. By definition, worry is fear of the future. It's fear of a future thing. It's something that has not occurred yet, but you're worried about it. You're fearful that when it does occur, the consequences or the effects will be disastrous or very hard on you or on I. And so today we're dealing with this a little bit. Let's turn now to Luke 10, 40 through 42. Luke 10, 40 through 42. And just for your own interest, the word worry is not in the Bible. Now I know, I really looked. I thought there was some mistake, and I checked out, and I'm talking about King James now. It is in the New International. But the King James Bible does not have the word worry. But there's the word care, and you are troubled, and things that indicate worry. Okay, Jesus and his disciples, let's go. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Here we go. Martha, verse 40. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made, and she came to Jesus, came to him and said, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Okay, now Martha could have handled that differently. She was working, she was trying to get all the food ready for all the guys there, and there's Mary just sitting at the feet of Jesus listening. Now, she could have just silently called Mary aside, but she was bent out. She was upset. And now she wanted Jesus to get on Mary. And that would have been harsher than if she'd have gone on Mary. And so she says to Jesus, I'm working here, and look, she's not helping me out. And Jesus' reply was interesting. He says, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, and Mary has chosen. She's chosen the better, and it will not be taken away from her. She's chosen the best thing. Okay, if we digest those texts for a second, Jesus says, you're a worrier. He's not just talking about the fact that Martha is concerned that she may not get that meal done in time. He reads her, and he knows that she worries. He says, you worry about a lot of stuff. You worry about many things, is what he says. You're worried about a lot of stuff, many things. And so that has to hit Martha to an extent. Yes, maybe that is me. Maybe I am concerned about a lot of stuff. And he says, Mary's got the good thing. She picked out the best thing. Because the words of Jesus can't be taken from her. She will remember them. They're with her always. And so even though she put aside the task of helping Martha, maybe Martha should have put aside that for a bit where Jesus was speaking and just said, supper's going to be a little later, but let's hear what the Master has to say. So anyway, we do know that Jesus is not fond of worrying. And if we go into, there's another story that interests me when I think about worrying. I'm thinking about, let's go and hear about Hezekiah. And if I can find that text here, we'll be all set. It is in 2 Kings 18, and we'll start with verse 19. 2 Kings, verse 18, and start with verse 19. Okay, I'm going to skip through this a little bit because it can get a little long, and we just want to get to the meat of the story here. But on your own, take time, read through the whole thing, because it is very interesting. Okay, with Hezekiah, he was up against it. The king of Assyria was the warlord of that time. The king of Assyria, nobody could challenge him. He just ravaged and went through nation after nation, and now he was at the foot of Jerusalem. Surrounding Jerusalem, there were 180,000 troops. And so this is what happens next. The field commander says, this is what the great king, the king of Assyria, says. On what are you basing your confidence? You say you have counsel and the might of war, but you speak only empty words. On whom are you depending? that you rebel against me. Look, I know that you are thinking about Egypt. I'm going to summarize this a little bit. But Egypt's not going to help you. Verse 22. You say we're depending upon the Lord. Well, the Lord sent us here to take care of you guys. But he will contradict himself later on. But roughly he's saying, it's the Lord's will that we come and invade you. And so that's a tough one to take, isn't it? They are here. We haven't always done the things we should. Could that possibly be true? Okay. Come now, listen, we're going to make a bargain here, he goes on to say. I'll give you 2,000 horses if you can put riders on them. In other words, you haven't really got an army to speak of. I'm sure they could have put riders on 2,000 horses, but he's just pushing the envelope a little. So he goes on, he keeps going. He said, the Lord himself, at the bottom of on verse 25, told me to march against this country. The envoy sent by King Hezekiah, the king didn't come out himself, he sends an envoy. And the envoy says, hey, you want to speak in Aramaic because we don't, this is just for us. This is just for us administrators here. And because he was speaking in Hebrew and the people were lined up around the wall and everything on top of the wall. And he said, do you think this is just for you? No, it's for all these people. He said, listen, Hezekiah's not going to be able to help you out. And he goes on to say, not only is Hezekiah not going to be able to help you out, why don't you just give up because things will be better if you go with us. Why, you're going to have fields and you're going to have wells and you're going to grow figs and we're just going to take you to a wonderful land. Well, you know that's not going to happen. But he's really trying for another way. Can't you picture Satan doing that? My, yes. If you just do this, things will be better. And then he finally goes on and he hits it really hard. He says, look at all these other gods. We ran through these towns, we ran through these nations. These other gods were unable to do anything. I mean, they were useless to the people. Of course, the truth of the matter is, those other gods were not gods at all. You and I serve the same God that Hezekiah served, the real God. We don't have any idols that we serve, but those nations did. Idol worship was big, and of course those idols couldn't help those nations out, and Assyria just ran right through it. And so he says, why do you think the Lord's going to help you? If we knocked out these other people and their gods, see, that's where he contradicts himself. The Lord's not going to be of value to you. Okay, so what does Hezekiah do? He is used to going to the Lord. It is his habit of going to the Lord. And when he gets the information, he prays to God. And in his prayer, he says, you know, those other gods did not help them out because they were useless. But you're the real God, and, you know, we're up against it now. We need your help. And don't let them blaspheme you. May you be glorified. And so he sends word to Isaiah, and Isaiah says, don't worry about this. He said, these people are going to go back the way they came, and the king himself is going to be killed with the sword when he goes back. And so it's an interesting thing happens. The people, the 180,000 troops, all of a sudden they leave. And you go, oh, good. It looks good. They left because there was another battle going on and they were needed there. They came back. There they are again. Just when you thought you could take a breath, just when you thought everything would be okay, they're back again. 180,000 troops just there. And actually there could have been more than that. So Hezekiah prays some more, and he prays to God, and then Isaiah sends in a messenger to Hezekiah, And he said, there will not be an arrow shot at Jerusalem. They will not fire anything at all at you. And God will take, and He will lead the battle. Now, that's a stretch, isn't it? But is it really a stretch? Because the next day, 180,000 plus troops were dead on the ground all around Jerusalem. And of course, King Sennacherib and his whatever remained of his people left. They had no men to fight with. 180,000. The destroying angel had come and killed all these people. Why? Because if we read before, we find that Hezekiah cleared out all the idols that were there before. Hezekiah served God, and he had the people serving God. He put his trust in God. And so God rewarded that trust, and the enemy was destroyed. And that'll be the same thing for us. We need to put our trust in God. And remember, I'm preaching to myself too. We need to put our trust in God. And then these things that come up, whether they're financial, whether they're health, whether they're whatever, God will be with us. God will take care of us during that time. Does that mean that health-wise we will be able to overcome anything? No. Everybody dies, don't they? We just don't like it when friends that we have around us pass away. But everybody passes away. And like my uncle said before he died, he said, death is just a part of life. It's expected, it will happen. But God will be with us. God will take care of us. We can trust Him, but we can only trust somebody that we know. Picture this. There you are. Go back in time a little bit. And there you are. It's a picnic going on. Matter of fact, it's the work picnic. And your employer has thrown this great picnic. And everybody's doing fun things. And they're going to have, the 50-yard dash just for the fun of it. And you used to be pretty fast. And so you go, okay, I'll do it. And then you say to yourself, oh, man, I've got my wallet in my back pocket. That's just going to hinder me. It might even drop out of my pocket. So you take it out. And the stranger says, here, I'll hold that for you while you run. Okay, are you going to give it to him? No, you don't know that guy. How can you trust him? How can you trust him? But your wife says, here, honey, I'll hold your wallet while you run. Well, sure, you give your wallet to your wife. It may come back empty, but... But anyway, so then you go ahead and run. But why didn't you give it to the stranger? Why did you give it to your wife? You knew you could trust her. And the reason you knew you could trust her, if you've known her for a long time, and you have trusted her before, and so you have a relationship. And that's the way it is with God. If we spend time and develop a trust relationship, then we will trust God when the big stuff comes. And we won't be as concerned. We won't worry about them. We won't fear them. We just need to remember how God has taken care of us in the past. You know, when I think of my own life, and I'm only 21, but when I think of, I'm 75. But anyway, when I think of my own life, I can honestly say God has never let me down. I've let me down. I've done things I wish I had never done, but God has never let me down, and He's even taken me through stuff that I didn't deserve a break on because I had put myself in a bad situation. God has even taken me through those things. So if we think about how God has helped us in the past, it helps us not to worry about the future. Jesus addresses worry. Let's go to Matthew 6, 25 through 30. Matthew 6, 25 through 30. As part of the he's got all the people there all gathered around him. Probably thousands and thousands of people were there. And he says, I tell you, don't worry about your life. Now, this is New International Version. What you will eat or drink, or about your body, about what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds that fly. They don't sow or reap or store away their food in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any of you worry and add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See the flowers, look at them. They don't labor or spin, and yet even Solomon in all his splendor was not dressed like one of these. And yet what's the end result there? It says they're here, they're today, and they're gone tomorrow, thrown into the fire. How much more will God clothe you? Oh, you have little faith. So Jesus says he doesn't want us to concern ourselves, even with the essentials, that if we give ourselves to God, God will take care of even the essentials. And so let's go on to John 14, and of course that was our text today, and that's one that we pretty much know by heart. John 14, 1 through 4. And Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God? Well, believe in me also. In my Father's house, there's many, here they says many rooms, many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I'm coming back, and I'm going to take you with me, that you may be where I am. And he says, you know the way to the place where I'm going. Okay, and of course that way is Jesus himself. I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about the lifespan of human beings and how short it is. I mean, the lifespan of a human being is really short. And not when you're 5 years old or even 9 years old. It seems like you're going to live forever. But some way or another, you just get older, and then you realize that there isn't a great deal of time left. But I was thinking about Adam living 900 years. That must have been kind of interesting. I think 930, I think he lived. I mean, what must that have been like? We're so used to, if somebody lives 114, we go, whoa. And I actually knew a lady that lived to be 116, I think it was. But anyway, we go, whoa, and you have something there.
World record is 122.
122?
Yeah.
It used to be. I'm going to live that long.
Well, actually, following that, the lady is still living for a glass of 50 days.
Well, okay, so it was a lady, right?
Correct.
122 years old. Now you wonder how many. There's a place where there's quality of life, and then there's a place where you're just living. And with this lady that I knew that was 116, she was okay to about, believe it or not, to about 110. And then from then on in, it wasn't so good. But look at Abraham, 175. Now that's a pretty good age. But look at us today. A real dear friend of mine died at 70 recently, and that's not uncommon. The average man lives to be 76. The average woman lives to be 81. That's not a lot of time. But the only reason I mention it is, look at, when we die, we're going to go to heaven. And there's places all set up for us. I'll tell you what, I don't care. Wherever God puts me is fine. I'm not worried so much about where I'm going to be located or the mansion I have, but everything in heaven is going to be great. So, we concern ourselves about things that are happening on this earth, but if we remember that this is just a start, and from then, after Jesus comes, we go to heaven, we'll be there forever. And ever's a long time. 10,000 years will go by, and of course we'll be in the earth made new after 1,000. And 10,000 years, and then another 10,000, another 10,000. 1 million years go by, and the good part is we haven't aged at all. So no matter what we go through on this planet, how can we possibly compare that with 1 billion years of wonderfulness? Okay. The thing is, Matthew 11:20-29 is the last text, and we'll close with that. Matthew 11:28 and 29. And when I was a young man, the thing that I really wanted is to be successful in business. I had my own business. I wanted to be successful. And then I noticed my goals changed from time to time. And the goal now that I want is peace. Peace and rest. I don't know about you, but that's the goal that I think is kind of nice. To be at peace. Not to be concerned about a lot of things. To have a certain rest. Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The hardest burden of all is the burden of sin. When we sin, it always costs us something. It's always a tough burden. Jesus says, he didn't say he has no burden for us, but he says it's light. It's not bad at all. So today, I would say, if you haven't developed a relationship, a real strong relationship, a trusting relationship with God, make that a goal. And then your worries will melt away, and Jesus will give you and give me rest. Thank you.